Today, the Department of Homeland Security made a big announcement about January 6th, 2025. Today, the Department of Homeland Security designated Congress's certification of electoral votes, which happens on January 6, 2025. They designated that a national special security event. That means a routine bit of congressional business is now going to have the same level of Secret Service protection as presidential inaugurations and the Super Bowl. And here is how House Speaker Mike Johnson responded to that news.
And what do you think of January 6th being designated now as a national security event? Do you think that's necessary?
I didn't even hear that happened. Who did that?
DHS designated as a national security event. Do you
Sounds
think
like
that's
politics to me.
Sounds like politics to me. Joining me now is Susan Glasser, staff writer at The New Yorker. Susan, thank you for being here. I know you know this, but, you know, Mike Johnson was one of the ringleaders of the 2020 January 6th plot. Mark Elias calls him, other than former President Trump, arguably the most culpable federal elected official in what transpired that day. What do you make of his reaction to designating the certification a national security event?
Well, you know, Alex, it was really striking to hear him say, I think it sounds like politics, because, of course, it was Trump and his allies on Capitol Hill, such as Congressman Johnson, who turned an event like that into politics that is really a ministerial constitutional function of the government. And, you know, it's really so striking because we're once again 4 years later in an election in which the candidate for president of the United States from the Republican Party is already attacking and undermining the basis on which the election will occur, saying that there are going to be questions about it, that it's going to be fraudulent, that it's going to be unfair, and, of course, calling upon his allies on Capitol Hill to support him in whatever claims he makes. I mean, that's the amazing thing. Imagine calling the election rigged before it's even taken place. That's the situation that we find ourselves in again. You know, I don't know if it'll be January 6th or it'll be some other way in which Trump chooses to attack or undermine the legitimacy of the election if he loses it again. But I think there's a very real basis for those concerns.
If you're paying attention to the sort of signals that are being given, whether by the Department of Homeland Security or by the Attorney General, I feel like a normal person thinks, I'm a little worried about what happens this election season. Today, Merrick Garland, not known to be a public alarmist, gave really unusual remarks to Department of Justice staff today, where he called out attacks on prosecutors and DOJ personnel and talked about conspiracy theories and just warned the public and obviously his staff that this was very dangerous and the environment was very, very threatening to the integrity and the safety of the Department of Justice and its employees. He didn't name Trump by name, but I mean, it is, Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, very unusual to have someone like Merrick Garland saying that 54 days before an election.
There's no question, of course, this is something, you know, that we really haven't seen before. Merrick Garland, as you said, is a very cautious official, not given to inflammatory statements. I thought that speech was quite remarkable. And it's very consistent, of course, with Trump being very clear about wanting to use you know, essentially to attack the institutions that are set up to safeguard the democracy. I was very struck. It didn't get as much attention, probably understandably, given all the incoherent and inflammatory things Trump said in that debate the other night. But I will point out that he was asked about January 6th. He was asked about his election lies, and he chose to double down on them in the debate the other night. He said not only that the election had been rigged and stolen from him, but that he continues to say that he's going to pardon the January 6th insurrectionists. And he calls them, as you know, repeatedly in his rallies, he calls them essentially martyrs to the cause of Donald Trump. And that's the side that he's taken on. I noticed that Kamala Harris made a point of saying how many police officers were injured on January 6, 2021, and, you know, pointing out that Donald Trump claims to be someone who backs law enforcement, who's anti-crime. But I think that in this election season, we're going to see more and more escalation the closer it gets to the election itself, because Trump is actively engaged in a campaign of undermining the legitimacy of an election that he might lose again.
Yeah, he's already saying today on the campaign trail, I think we're going to win very big. And as long as it's an honest election, I will absolutely accept the results. Upshot is that he's not in the presidency right now. Downside is that Mike Johnson is now the Speaker of the House. Susan Glasser, always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for your time tonight.